I think life is about finding the kind of connections that make everything feel like home, like finding your perfect place. That's what my friend Tim Rist and the whole team at Discover Oregon Real Estate are doing every day. My sister Mariah recently joined the Door team, and she was our realtor when we bought the house I'm recording in right now. Mariah guided us smoothly, right from our initial feeling of overwhelm all the way through closing. And after closing, she was always there when we needed help, even through the remodeling projects. Mariah's a super talented realtor. She shows up for her clients like a life coach. Her joyful energy just turns the chaos into excitement. So it's no surprise she fits perfectly with Discover Oregon's culture of generosity, community building, and heartfelt service. Whether you're looking for a cozy Willamette Valley home, a luxury view, a farm, a ranch, commercial space, Discover Oregon supports the buyers and sellers and investors with a growing network all across Oregon. Yes, they make the whole process feel manageable for their clients, but behind it all, they're committed to an even bigger purpose: connecting local businesses and partnering with nonprofits. Their vision is to actually end homelessness, starting right here in our own communities, and they intend to do it. So when you're ready to find your place, visit discoveroregon.realestate or call Mariah at 541-250-2823. And when you call them, tell them Emotion Art sent you, because we're all in this together.
Welcome to Emotion Art.
Emotion Art, where we sit down and make art with
Emotion Art.
creative energy moving outward in conscious expression of feeling.
Emotion Art.
Emotion Art.
Emotion Art.
Emotion because we are literally made of emotion. Art because everything we do wants to be art. Emotion art feels.
Emotion Art. It's all beautiful. Emotion Art. Emotion Art.
A space for emotional art. Creative energy moving outward in conscious expression.
Emotion Art.
An emotion art gallery.
This is Emotion Art.
You're welcome. I know your name is John. I know you're the father of Tim Rist, who's someone that I've been having more and more interactions with lately, which has been fantastic. But I don't know a lot of other things about you. So, in your perspective, who are you?
So I'm John Patrick Rist. Got the Irish in there.
Okay.
And I came from a very, very strong Catholic family. And
Oh boy.
there was a lot of, which I didn't know at the time, imperfect and dysfunctional things there, which is probably true of, to some degree, of every family that's ever existed, because no family is perfect. However, in my case, there were some things that stood out that affected me a lot that at the time I didn't know that they would affect me so much, because I was just a little kid. And when you're a little kid, you don't know anything at all because you're just being exposed to it.
Everything's normal.
I will just say some of it included an unhealthy connection with my mother, an unhealthy disconnection with my father, an older brother who was threatening bullying, and a sister who dealt with mental illness, and then a father who died when I was 14, and me having extreme fear. You call it nightmares.
Or night terrors?
Yeah. A lot of it was related to spiritual stuff. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like witches or something like that. And so at the time, I didn't know that there was a lot of religion and spiritual experiences going on all around me that affected me deeply, that affected our family deeply. including such thing as mental illness. In my case, there was also a thing that came in when I was 6 years old that was, I now see is a spiritual root, and that was unwanted same-sex attraction. And that was actually very, very negative for me in the very initial inception of it. It was very unpeaceful, and not because somebody told me that was wrong or you shouldn't. I was 6 years old. It was just inherently, it was unsettling to my whole soul. And so I also dealt with paranoia and other things that I couldn't really talk to anybody about, because when I did, they would just say something like, "Oh, don't be silly, honey. That's just nothing. Oh, don't be so serious." So I stuffed the deepest fears and things through all the childhood as I watched intense things happen around me, like my sister having to go to a hospital from really a mental illness, which was almost killed her, anorexia nervosa.
Oh, yeah.
And then my father having a heart attack when I was like 8. But then again, he had a second one when I was 14 and died from it. And a mother who was hysterical about the health of the father. And then a brother who had brooding anger issues that he would, when nobody else was around, it seemed, take out on me because I was 5 years younger. Anyway, all these things contributed to a little boy that really learned to hide from the deepest things and to learn to be a peacemaker and a pleaser of other people and nice. And everybody thought I was, a very nice, little boy. And
What were you afraid of? What did the fear look like?
the earliest fears were, it's hard to describe them, but it would just be like, if you've ever gone to like maybe at a horror movie or something, a little kid, and you didn't really define it, but it just gripped you to your core of I would call it now a demonic
Unutterable evil.
Just a like a fear that just totally terrified you to the point where it was more powerful than any other force, and all you wanted to do was get away from it, and it was completely overpowering.
What's your relationship with that type of kind of abstract and nameless dread fear now?
Totally different.
Sure.
So everything changed.
I'm not trying to skip ahead. It's just
It's hard to. No,
I let myself go where my curiosity.
No, you're
wants
great,
to go.
Michael.
I've
never
way,
seen anybody actually. I almost said interrogate. No,
I mean, if the shoe fits, I'll wear it.
No. Interview. Yeah, like
I'm gonna turn this light up.
Even
now.
from the first, even from the first moment I sat down, I sensed in you a special ability and a gifting to interview. Okay?
I appreciate that.
And I actually interview a lot of people, not in this setting, but in a different setting. So I actually know about that. But I sense that in you. And what it is, it's about asking really good questions and asking them at the right moment. So anyway, I'll just throw that out there for free.
Oh, I received that, John. Thank you.
So I'm 71 years old, and we've only gotten to like age 14, barely. So you can see we can't go into all of it.
If anything, follow your curiosity too. Like, this is your episode. I'm here to see what is inside you, to see what emotions this human has and what experiences you've gathered and why you did it and what they looked like. So where we go, like, you've been alive for so many times around the sun. So many times.
Don't say that too much,
because you're not old. You've just been here in human scale. You've been here a while. I just want to see, what does the world look like to John and why?
Well, so I want to follow then up on this thread of the idea of truth. And so I just said something to you that you didn't pay me to say or ask me to say or anything.
That's true.
But I said it because I sensed that it was true. And then your response to it was, I believe, genuine, like, well, thank you. I appreciate that. And so what I believe more and more the older I get is truth is really an awesome thing, if there is such a truth, because even that is very challenged today. But if there is this objective truth that doesn't vary based on, well, this person has, this is truth to them, and this is truth to them. Yeah, everybody's going to have their own experience with truth, but if there is such a thing as truth, like let's say you say gravity is true, then it's true for everybody, whether they believe in it or not.
Yes.
Well, and somebody says, well, I don't believe in gravity right now because I'm on LSD and I think I can fly and I'm going to step off the edge of the balcony, and guess what? Truth will prevail and they will fall, even though at that moment they didn't believe in it.
But what if they don't? I'm just saying. I mean, I think crazy things happen sometimes.
That's another interesting comment you're making, because that's actually almost trying to say, well, wait, maybe there isn't truth. Because that question is kind of like, wait, there's always exceptions, so actually there is no truth.
But you believe in a God that could, if the situation called for it, save you from dying when you stepped off a roof, correct?
Right. So in that case, gravity is something that can be overridden.
Yeah.
So gravity is not a perfect example. So getting back just on this idea of truth, so the reason why I think that is really cool is because it's available to all of us.
Yeah.
And that it's impartial and that it's good. And so this is what drove me from that 14-year-old kid who was really confused, whose father just died and had all these things going on, and basically family fell apart, and mother became depressed and checked out, and brother went somewhere else, and my sister ran away from home, and I'm a 14-year-old freshman in high school with a knot in my stomach for 6 months, and basically kind of like not outwardly homeless, but, homeless, and starting to raise myself. And then I went into drugs and to escape, and I went into, alcohol and marijuana and being a hippie and all that. And then I also because of a spiritual thing that was deeply in there, believed, trying to find something more powerful than just the things that controlled everyday circumstances. And so I felt that in the spirit realm, there might be that. So I searched deeply into anything but Christianity. Why? Because I had already been totally turned off by Christianity by my exposure to it in what I would call dead religion. Now, not all Catholics or not all people that go to churches like that are dead religion, don't get me wrong, but mine certainly was. So I had a bias in a way against one version of spirituality during the years that I became thinking on my own, 12, 13, up until I was 19. And I pursued spirituality in a lot of different veins, like Eastern religion particularly. And something I see very common now is the idea that God is everywhere and that we all are God, and what isn't God, and that evil and sin and things like that, they're just illusion. And if we really could just come to an awareness of our true self, we would transcend that, and that we would be freed from, the illusion of evil and sin that we see around us, of just not being aware of our true ultimate nature, that we are God, that we all are God, and that everything's God, and what isn't God, and I'm just part of God. So, it was to try to find, there's a lot of names for it, self-realization, things like that. So I pursued that heavily and intensely and personally. What I found, though, was this occasional fear would come up, and it was still stronger, because there was a certain degree of peace in those other things, but they weren't strong enough to really alleviate the deepest fears that I had, that were basically being pushed down by different things and different coping mechanisms.
So where did the peace come from?
I would say, just like you can take a certain drug that's not good for you, can feel better for the moment. Does that mean that it's healthy for you? And the answer to why you're taking the drug.
So you're saying you feel like all of the Eastern religions and world perspectives are like crutches or band-aids for a spiritual connection that doesn't actually exist?
I wouldn't even pick on all the Eastern religions. I'm going to pose it in a second in a more positive way.
Okay.
If you'll hang with me for a second.
Perfect.
Okay.
More positive is always better. I am not trying to straw man you either. I promise you. Sometimes I slip into it, but I don't intend to.
No, and I believe that
Yes.
too. So again, trying to make a very long story short, when I was 19, I had a spiritual encounter that surprised me because it went against a lot of my fears and really inner vows almost to say, well, I'm not going to believe that and I'm not going to believe that. Well, why? Well, because I tried that or because those people believe that and, they're dumb or I can see through them, specifically like other Christians and stuff I'd heard. Mm-hmm. But I want God. And there was this thing that began to happen in me, probably 17 and then more in 18. And you know what it would be called? A hunger for truth, no matter what it might mean, especially if it meant that I had to say I was wrong.
Yeah.
And
you
so,
had an existential crisis.
Yeah.
Good.
And with that existential crisis is what I would call a humbling, because you're no longer trying to defend a position, but instead you're going, I'm not confident in my position. I'm not sure what my position is, other than one thing I do know about my position, it's not 100% sure. It's shaky. I have fears, I have insecurities, I have doubts, I have things that I can't fix, I can't overcome. And some of these things are actually really, really like heavy duty. So I'm going to actually do whatever I can to bury them, cover them over, and not even acknowledge they're there, run away from them in some way, some fashion, which is done in a lot of ways.
Did you have any weird disjointed or disconnection feelings going through like the existential crisis part of that?
Not exactly. So let me ask you this. Why are you asking that question?
I want to know what it felt like where you come to the place where you say, I don't know, where you're finally being humbled, where you're finally hitting rock bottom, you're stepping off the high horse, you're realizing that everything you had been chasing with your best of intentions isn't good enough. You're your own worst enemy. You're getting in your own way again, and you have to surrender. What did that feel like in that process for you?
It was a bad experience. And the bad experience was, in my case, a bad acid trip.
Interesting.
And the bad acid trip, freshman in college, 18, was sitting around a college dorm with my friends, and we're smoking marijuana and all that stuff. And I'm friends, and one of them's like really a good friend. And then somebody says, hey, we got this PCP or something, or no, It wasn't that. It was supposed to be something good, like a hallucinogenic drug, like I don't know what, mescaline, I don't know what it was. And so we go, oh yeah, let's take it. So we go, oh sure, we take it. So we take it, and turns out I found out later, much later, that I don't know what it was. It could have been angel, it could have been something bad. Anyway, PCP. It was not exactly... It wasn't LSD or mescaline like we thought, or like I thought, because I'd had that a few times. So anyway, it's starting to come along, and we're passing a joint around in this room, and suddenly I begin to experience a little bit of paranoia. And then I'm kind of like, okay, and it just starts growing. And I suddenly have this feeling that, well, people must see that I'm paranoid. And then I get paranoid about them seeing it. And then I suddenly have this realization that people can read my mind. And meanwhile, whoever they're doing, this is only a group of, 6 people that all know each other really well. So it's really funny in retrospect. And they're just carrying on. Meanwhile, I'm kind of going deeper into this thing. And then my best friend, who's sitting right next to me, finally at one point, he kind of looks at me and he kind of like, here, hands me the joint, like, here, like, feel better or something. And so I take it. And then suddenly the worst fear that I guess I had in my life suddenly surfaced right in my mind. And you know what it was? It was fear that I was a homosexual.
Interesting. And
so that was the deepest, darkest fear that I had that had built over my life, because I had absolutely zero peace about being that was not okay with me from the very first inception of it ever feeling that. But it was also the thing that I did most to distance myself in every way that I acted, dressed, behaved, and everything through my entire upbringing because of what I would say the pretty rampant common problem, and that is gender insecurity, which is really just another subset of a very important thing, and that is identity insecurity. And so for me, I was a perfect setup for it. I won't go into all the psychological analysis of it, of which I've had a boatload and been able to unpack this so it actually makes logical sense too.
Do you have room for like another question or two about it? Like this is the second time you've brought up this unwilling, what? Okay, how did you?
Unwanted same-sex attraction.
Unwanted same-sex attraction. I'm now starting to have questions. If you're willing to field questions about it.
I talk about anything about it that anybody wants to know.
Okay. Why were they unwanted?
Because from the very first time I ever felt it, which was 6 years old, accompanying it was a great lack of peace and a sense of, in a 6-year-old, you don't analyze this, right? It's all nonverbal. So now it's a hard question to ask because I'm now 65 years later, trying to verbally describe what I couldn't before. But the best I could tell you is that it was an attack on my identity. My true identity is that I'm not a homosexual. And it was an attack on that. And it was based upon me comparing my male characteristics that I thought made somebody male with others, particularly with, in this case, like a gym teacher that would represent more masculine traits. And because I had no connection with a father figure, I had no like real love, affection, and bonding with that at all that was normal and healthy and needed for me to identify with, that I'm a male and it's good, and here's that. I was set up for a lie to be planted that is not good. And there's a lot of those around because I believe there is not just good in the universe, but there is evil in the universe that is not just random, but is intelligent and is continuous, and it is set on a course to come against the good in the universe, which is God. And I, of course, as a 6-year-old, I didn't articulate all this, but I could sure tell you the fruit of it: fear, insecurity, lack of confidence, lack of peace. Not, oh, well, this is cool, and oh, this is who I am, let me celebrate this, and oh, exciting. And not because anybody talked to me about homosexuality. I don't even think I had ever heard the word. It wasn't like there were morals put upon me to say, well, you felt that way just because that's what society told you. No, not true. I inherently, just like we all can have a sense of inherent truth, even a child, I inherently sensed that it was not healthy and not good. And that has never departed from me my entire life. And it wasn't because somebody told me that. It was something that I knew in the depth of my being when it started. So pretty long answer to a heavy duty question.
You answered my second and third questions. That was incredible. What I heard overall was, I'm not exactly sure, but I know who I am.
At that time, I didn't know who I was. Can you imagine someone being unsure about who they even frickin' are?
I can, John.
And then having something come and tell you, well, you're this, and that just makes it all worse because there's things that yes. With any good lie, it doesn't look like a lie. Yeah. It actually has a whole bunch of, well, that part's true, but at the root of it is a lie. But keep going.
Yeah. I would see the world a little bit less black and white, probably.
And we can talk about that. That's good. I like that. We can talk about that too.
Oh, yeah. But, I love talking about that.
So go back to the first question.
But I'm curious. It didn't feel natural to your system, is what I hear you saying. Your system said this feeling does not feel natural, feels foreign. And I'm wondering, although I believe that was something that felt innate in you, I'm wondering the environment that you grew up in, how was homosexuality viewed by the people that you were being influenced by their energy?
Okay,
because I already believe what you're saying, and this does not discount that, but I'm just curious.
So there's two things that you're saying that are reasonable assumptions.
Yeah.
And both of them I'm going to say are not true.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, so
perfect. And I truly don't feel like I'm making an assumption.
No,
I'm just
I love
curious
it. It's wonderful because we're having an honest. So here's the two things. One is, don't you think that what you grew up and stuff, don't you think maybe that had an influence on you coming to the conclusion that this is not natural?
Okay, you're saying I'm stating the obvious, and that's a good point.
And then the second thing is, what you're telling me is that it felt unnatural. And I would say no, it wasn't that it felt unnatural.
Okay, that's what I heard.
Yeah, that's what you heard.
That's what I heard.
And that's because, again, it's very hard to describe. It was unnatural, but it's worse than it was just unnatural.
Felt evil.
Well, what does that mean?
I know.
That sounds really archaic and like, you use that word and you're into evil. No, so I don't want to use that word because that'll again it felt bad, meaning that it was, I'm going to go back there, 6 years old. Somehow a whole bunch of things went off that were like, something just happened and it affected you really powerfully. It's making everything worse and harder. So it's more than just, well, this isn't natural. No, it's more like, I just took something in that really hits a deep part of me somewhere, and it's really not healthy, and it's actually really harmful, and on top of it, it's something that is really scary, and also something that I can't ever tell anybody about because even I don't want it. So that's why it's called unwanted.
And then you're going to get kicked out of the tribe.
6 years old. I wasn't thinking that far ahead. No, I wasn't.
John, I really appreciate you exploring this.
It's pretty,
answering those questions so thoroughly, like that's satisfying. I appreciate that.
I mean, it's a pretty, and by the way, I have huge empathy towards people that deal with either unwanted same-sex attraction or wanted same-sex attraction or anything. How could I not? Because
Do you have joy for those kind or still empathy?
I have empathy because
if it's wanted, I'm saying.
I think that somebody could have, yes, I do, because I believe, and this will probably really rattle some people, and I don't mean to say it to rattle anybody.
Or do you?
Not in a bad sense.
No, of course not. Say it.
That our Creator didn't create anybody as a homosexual. And right away, there'll be people that bring up things that I've run through my head a lot of times, and I'll try to proactively address one or two of them as all, and then we'll move on. And that would be that just because you feel something really, really deeply, and it's a very strong thing, doesn't necessarily mean that it's based on truth. Let's say you were born with an addiction to a particular drug because of whatever reason, however it got into your system. And so you would actually have a want for that drug. And you could want it very, very much. Did the Creator create you as a crack addict? No. It was an unfortunate part of the evil that has come into this world, which is another huge question. Why is there evil? And ends up causing all sorts of problems in all sorts of ways and all sorts of means in people, and beyond just sexual problems and gender identity problems. There's a jillion emotional, mental challenges that people did not choose. Nobody chose to have a predisposition towards a lot of things that are actually harmful to them. So that's why in this case, I say, I have zero judgment towards you, and I have, by the grace of God, 100% love. That's my zero judgment, 100% love. But that doesn't mean that I will agree with what, as best I know, is not true, because I believe that truth is what ultimately sets everybody free. So,
There's so many tempting rabbit trails in there, and
I know.
I'm going to resist all of them because really, I want to know how you got out of that. Like,
Okay.
you took the angel dust or whatever, and that's kind of what really put you in, like, face first into this spiritual perception of the spiritual world.
So that came
My
in this
perception.
revisiting of what had been buried and running away from for quite a while, that had surfaced in different forms with nightmares and other things and terrors and things. But it was still there and down deep, and I had learned to cope, and I'd learned to manage it like many people do in life. In many ways, they're not so much thriving as that they're learning to manage their deepest fears,
Yeah.
cover them, cope over them, or somehow hide them, mask them, whatever, but not actually face them head on. Because if they try to, they're overcome by it. And then it's like they either kill themselves or they go crazy or something else. In this case, it came on full on. And then normally when you come out of an acid trip the next morning, it's like, oh, that was bad, but you're like down, like, well, the next morning I was down off the drug, and guess what? The fear was still there. Really really scary when you still have the paranoia from an acid trip after you're down the next day. And so that was a wake-up call for me, because that was in me, and it stayed there for many months. And I was, to some degree, you would classify me as like paranoid schizophrenic a little bit. Meaning,
Schizophrenic, too.
I think I even went to a school counselor, and I was, quote, having a paranoid schizophrenic episode.
Some delusions.
Yeah, that went over a period of months.
Interesting.
But if you saw me, I would just be quiet and just sort of not talk much.
Yeah.
And like you sometimes see people shuffling around, and they're very inward, and they may well be having different, well, why are they so subdued? Because inside they're just trying to cope. And so I was doing that big time, still going through the motions outwardly for months and months. And that's when I began to get more into Eastern religion. And that's when I came to the point of going, okay, like just getting high and going to parties, that doesn't cut it anymore. Like that doesn't bring me relief. I can't escape it anymore with just getting drunk. And I certainly can't escape it with marijuana, because I couldn't even smoke marijuana anymore because it would bring flashbacks. So I couldn't do hallucinogenics anymore. And then I go, well, what else is there? And of course, I'm going to classes, just like terrible student, just like going through the motions, because I'm just like in another place.
This is at university.
I was at University of California at Santa Barbara.
Okay.
So I got into transcendental meditation and into Self-Realization Fellowship by Yogananda Paramahansa, and books like Be Here Now by Meher Baba. And these are all many of the things in these are totally contemporary for many, many people. They just wouldn't put them by the same names, that all have a basic similar worldview, which is that God's everywhere in anything, in everything. And so I was pursuing that heavily and got a measure of relief over time. However, there was also this place in me that was saying, I can't go back to just coping the way it was. I have to break through to some kind of solution, some kind of permanent solution, some kind of spiritual ultimate solution that's more powerful than that fear coming back. And I'm running from it right now. I don't know when it might come back again, but I don't want to know. But I have no confidence really in what could overcome that.
Because every one of those religions and those perspectives leaves you completely alone.
Well,
is that why you were like, I don't know what's coming and I don't know if I can handle it? Because...
Well, in a way, you're right, because actually I already was alone.
Yeah.
That's the whole point. Yeah. And they actually didn't fix that.
No, that's what they teach. You are alone. At the end of all things, when push comes to shove, you are alone.
Yeah, good. So I agree with
yeah.
So
that makes sense.
So I realized, not even consciously, but down at a deeper level, that wasn't a good enough answer. Because me all alone has some bad stuff in there.
Like, what do you in where? Like, what do you mean?
Like fear that is unsolvable, like fear that is overwhelmingly powerful, that is enough to completely destroy me and literally be like a living hell, whether you believe in a literal hell or not, that a fear that's so terrifying and awful that it is unmanageable, and that is in me still, down deep inside, and I do not have a solution to facing that kind of fear. No one. This transcendental meditation is maybe at best a kind of temporary Band-Aid, a little tiny topical painkiller, barely, certainly not a systemic painkiller, and certainly not a cure to the cancer that is actually terminal inside of me.
Fortunately, it does say that for itself, though.
What says that?
All of those Eastern modalities that say you are completely alone, they also say we don't have the cure. If they say they have the cure, I don't think they read their text well enough.
Well, these ones did not. These ones did not read their text well enough, because I agree with that statement.
Yeah.
But
that's one of the things I like about them is they're just like, we don't have it figured out, but we figured out that if you confuse yourself enough, you're going to find peace. So let us help confuse you. That's
great.
Like that's so to me, that's just a joyful, like, that resonates with me. And I hear you that you're like, heck no, there is a deep, deep, deep fear that has to be dealt with.
Yeah. So here's the thing, is that I tried very much for years to come to that transcendent spot where you transcend that. But it evaded me. Some people would say, well, have you reached... they'd have different terms.
I'll put air quotes to whatever one you say.
Self-realization, self-actualization, I don't know, maybe nirvana.
I know. I thought that was the first one you were going to say.
Now it's too cliche. I don't even know what that means.
Good point. But, it means nothing.
But a lot of people will actually, even today, many people very close to would probably ascribe to some kind of self-actualization.
Yeah. Kind of going around.
Or transcendence or whatever. So here's the problem that I ran into, that just going to a place of annihilation of somehow where, okay, I'm no longer afraid because I no longer exist or something like that also proved to not be true. That was like, oh, that's one way to deal with it. But then I began to hear a message that had a different possibility to the whole thing. And the message was this: yeah, that makes sense what you're feeling. And yeah, it is unfixable for you. And yeah, it's deadly. And yeah, there's actually an answer for it. But it's not in self-dissolution alone. It involves self-dissolution. It involves giving up. But giving up to something that comes in and actually gives you what you don't have now. And that something that comes in and gives you what you don't have now is truth. And that as the truth will come into you, that truth actually can set you free. And that truth turns out is more than just a philosophy, a force, or a universal concept, but is a frickin' person. It's an actual person. And that person is actually the creator that somehow, miraculously, became a man so that he could come on this earth and he could actually face head on as a human all of these things I've faced, every temptation, every evil that anything could ever happen, and allow himself to be fully exposed to it, and be killed and die, and then raise again. And why did he do all that? Because he broke the power of that evil stuff for everybody else that would believe in him. And that is what it means to have a Savior. And that there is a Savior. That's truth. And the Savior is a person. And the Savior is for anybody because he's not partial. He loves everybody the same. But we're not robots. And so he waits for us to hear his message and then believe it. And his message is summed up in one phrase. And this is what it's like he said to me, John, I am the way, and I am the truth, and I am the life. And nobody's going to come to heaven or nirvana or perfection or freedom except through me. And so you can either believe me or not. And so when I was 19, bent over anyway.
Another traumatic moment in the life of John.
Not a bad traumatic, but
okay.
not a good, not a bad. But,
okay.
But the most seismic moment would be when I personally made a choice to put my faith in, and his name, by the way, is Jesus Christ, and to put my faith in this invisible person who is there speaking to me and had been for a long time, but I finally listened. And I said, okay. And my simple prayer was this, okay, I'll give it all up to you. And I did. And everything changed in a moment. And for the first time in my life, I knew a freedom from that fear. Because for the first time in my life, I found a force greater than all those greatest fears. And that power is the love of God, the love of Jesus Christ.
And where are those fears now? What is your relationship with them now?
When they come, they eventually get their butt kicked in because they're enemies, and I wage a war against them because this war is going on as long as I'll be on this imperfect world.
So do you feel like it's possible to be free from those fears, or is that like...
Well, I am free from the fears.
But I'm just saying, you say when they come, is it possible to come to a point as a human where those fears don't come anymore?
I would say no, because even the only perfect man that ever lived said he was tempted in all ways like us without sin. So to me, a fear coming is a temptation. And so I would say no. As long as we're in this world, we're going to have exposure to evil that's around us in different forms. And just because you're exposed to it doesn't mean that you are under its power. So my response to these different things is 100% different since having Christ in me. It's not perfect. I'm learning every day how to follow Christ. Just because I've received Christ in no way says that now suddenly I'm all reprogrammed in all my thoughts and feelings and reactions. That's a lifelong process that the Bible calls sanctification, which is entirely different and separate from salvation, that happened in an instant, and it needed to, because I needed to know that I was secure and that that's not who I was. That's an instantaneous miracle. But the rest of it is what it means in the Bible to walk out your salvation with fear and trembling, because God now lives in you and is working in you both to give you new desires and new power that you didn't have when you were alone, before you brought him into your life, to begin to reprogram you from the bad programming that is in everyone because of their being born into a fallen, imperfect world. And they've all been exposed to tons of lies and imperfection and continue to be exposed. And so this is the remedy for the constant propaganda that we're being bombarded with, is truth. And the more truth we get, the freer we get. And that truth is not in our heads. That truth is in the person, Jesus Christ, living in me. that's who I am now, a person that has Jesus Christ living in him, who's in the process of being reprogrammed a little bit more every day.
How do you feel that the base state of humanity, of the world around us, is one of sin, one of what you said, like that vision of every human has to go through the healing process, has to do the improvement process because they're all broken. How do you feel that is what our reality is from your perspective?
When you say, how do I feel?
Like, what does that actually mean to you? What really is it that you're seeing? Because the truth is, John, my words aren't formed enough yet on the things that I'm thinking about most of the time. So I mostly just listen. But when you were describing Eastern philosophy, God is everywhere, and you were saying all these different, like you were giving a bullet point list of all these statements about God. And I'm just like, from where I'm sitting, all of those statements describe the same God that the Christian statements describe. It's just that they have a different worldview. But God being everywhere is a concept that is in both of them. All of them, if you look at them from the right perspective, are actually looking at the same thing from a different perspective. That is just what I hear as you talk through the points of both points. But it's also what I see in my everyday life. So
what's the difference?
Just an aside.
So I'm not perfect in communicating this
No,
because
of course
taken
not.
out of context,
Human. You're such a human.
God is everywhere.
Yeah.
You're right.
It could mean multiple things.
Yeah,
it
it could
depends
be-
on your perspective. So the words just don't matter.
They do, but they're inadequate because it
They
takes
do.
something more.
But they also
And so at the end of the day, we have to understand that behind words there is motive.
and emotion and feeling. But
Let's go deeper. Even before there's emotions,
okay, what's before emotions?
thoughts.
Really? Because I would say, to me, I experience it opposite. I think that the thought is a commentary on the emotion that came first. But I'm not saying, I have no idea. You could be right.
And so some people would argue that before you have a language, could you actually have choices? Can a baby choose?
They know the difference between light and dark. They know the difference between loud and not loud.
Okay. So what I would say, before you can even articulate and analyze your emotions, that a baby still has choices.
True.
They choose to cry or not cry. Mm-hmm. So we're getting very philosophical here. So I'm just going to throw out
it's not bad.
I'm just going to throw out one explanation of the soul of man that I found as good as any, Christian or non, that generally psychiatrists, psychologists would.
Perfect.
I pretty much, nobody would argue with this, and it works. And so I'll just throw it out. You might argue with it.
Maybe.
Is that people are very concerned about behaviors, and they have behaviors in their life they'd like to get over, let's say bad behaviors or addictions or whatever. So we're focused on behaviors and we'd like to get changes. So we go, okay, well, why are we doing those behaviors? So then if we step back one version, they say, well, let's talk about what's motivating. What are your emotions that cause you to act? Because a lot of people will say that before you act is that you have a certain emotion that causes you to actually act on it. Because you can have different thoughts, but it's only when before the emotion there's this thought. So if you look at it horizontally, you have results in your life that are from actions you take, and some of those results are good or bad. Let's say your actions are based on truth. Then I would say the results are ultimately going to be good. But if the actions are based on lies, then the results are eventually going to be bad, just in the most general areas. And so if your actions are based on emotions, then if your emotions are based on truth, then eventually the actions from those emotions based on truth will be good. But if your emotions are based on lies, then the actions from those emotions will end up being bad. And then I step back and go, okay, well, what are these emotions based on? And these emotions are based on concepts or thoughts. And if the emotions are based on, maybe you're disconnecting with me.
Well, no, you're like, I step back and I ask, what are the emotions based on? I was like,
I'm getting there.
So I step back and I ask, what is the truth and lies based on?
So let me get there.
Okay, perfect.
So I'm just showing you how it all
I try to
connects.
keep it shut.
No, you're doing well. I'm giving you probably more than you asked for, but it's kind of fun.
Hopefully.
I love this thing. And so if the emotions are based on thoughts that are lies, because you can have thoughts that come in your head like, oh, I think so-and-so hates me, and it's actually a lie, then it could cause you to have a feeling towards that person that could cause you to have an action toward that person that could have you a result with that person that could all come back, well, I have this thought about this person that is wrong, that's a lie, that would cause all those things. But if the emotion's based on, the thought is true, then what you do is actually going to be a good feeling in the sense that it doesn't feel good, but it's right. Like, for example, if you have a thought about a person that is like that they're a thief, and it's true. Well, then the feeling you might have is, well, I better actually be careful here. Well, is that feeling itself doesn't feel good, but it's a good feeling. It's a right feeling. And that feeling will then generate a result is I'm going to protect myself or my family because, again, going back, it is true. It's not your opinion. It's actually objectively true that this person is a habitual thief. That's just, if that's a true statement. And again, these are imperfect examples. So taking them back up, here's where we're getting to where you want to go, is that I would say that we're defined not by any of those things up to this point, but we're defined by this thing that's even deeper than our emotions or our thoughts, which is our choice. Deep down inside, that we are defined in any moment, we are what we choose. And that we have these different inputs coming in all the time that we get to choose which ones we embrace, which ones we believe and follow. And if we're getting an input that is a lie and then follow it, then that is ultimately going to next produce a thought or more thoughts that are based on a lie. And that's going to result in bad stuff. And then that's going to produce feelings that results bad stuff, actions results bad, and output that the results of the bad actions. But it all comes back to the choice that we all have, no matter how old we are, to what messages, subconscious and otherwise, English or not, in whatever language that actually communicates to the very depth of our spirit, are we believing lies or are we believing truth? And there is both of them present constantly in this world for all people of all ages, Christians and non-Christians alike.
And that's too easy. The topic of truth, relative truth, and all that stuff, it's such a topic of definition of terms that it's like, okay, I get it. There's two sides to it. There's two sides, infinity sides. There's so many different ways to look at it, at this. But I will tell you, John, that while you were just giving that actually really good explanation, like
it's a proposal. What
I
if
like
it's
it.
true?
It resonates with the way I navigate emotionally. But I was switching back and forth between hearing the way you are saying it from a Christ-centered, from a fundamental Christian perspective, and from the perspective of Eastern philosophy. The words you're saying mean the same thing.
Could apply to both.
And they mean the same thing. I'm just in my perception of it, I'm stepping back and forth between these two perceptions, and the words made exactly the same sense and meant exactly the same thing.
I agree.
The names are just all different.
Yeah.
And instead of Jesus, instead of God, instead of finding that superpower that conquers the fear, that is able to conquer the fear, in the Eastern, you just call it I.
I agree. You can do that. And so isn't that interesting is, let's say, imperfect as it was, that what I just described was fairly true. In other words, we get back to this idea that truth, if it's really true, it actually is reliable, and it's a good thing, and it's a good thing to embrace. And it would be universally applicable. So I would say the fact of what you just said actually supports the proposition that what I just described is basically true. It's not perfect.
But you're describing a biofeedback loop. It's very true.
However,
or the process of evolution, if you believe in that. You're describing a lot of things there.
I know. However, I'm taking it a step further because this is exactly what happened in my real life between ages 14 and 19 that I, took a lot of stuff from the Bible. Yeah, that's true. I got, Jesus is cool. I got him down. He's in there too. And I got all this. And I was able to come up.
He got it.
I got it.
He's a good dude.
He's an avatar.
Yeah.
He's just like Krishna and Zoroaster and Muhammad and blah, blah, blah. And also Meher Baba and Yogananda Paramahansa and the guy that, anyway. So, but the reality is that there was more truth coming than what I just described. And that is, okay, now we can all agree that I am who I choose to be. And we can all agree that what I choose to believe in is really effective. But then it's like, what do you do with the claims out of his own mouth of this man, Jesus Christ, when he comes along and says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Yeah. And nobody comes to nirvana or wherever else you want to call it except through me. Because either he's really, lying or he's deluded, or he could just actually be that flat out without just interpret it for what it sounds like a child could interpret it. And it's really up to you whether or not you accept his message or don't at face value. And that is the humbling point of dissolution that I came to, that I believe is available to all people. And I see it happening sometimes to people that are, this last week, 88-year-old Marine guy who's been in America his whole life. You'd think, of course, he's heard about Jesus. And I said, hey, he goes, he's been thinking about dying and he doesn't feel good about it. And I go, well, why? And he goes, well, I don't think I've done good enough. I go, well, there's a different message, and it's not based on you having done good enough. It's because nobody's done good enough. We've all fallen short of perfection. It's based on putting your trust in another who did good for you, and you received the gift of being good enough entirely, which is salvation, which is through Christ, and that you put your faith in that. And you haven't done that, have you? He goes, no, I haven't done that. And I go, well, do you want to do that? And he goes, well, I need to think about it. And so isn't that amazing that we would think that certainly in a country like America, that they would all, I know about Jesus and all that. But the reality is, it hasn't really come home on a personal level as a real decision that they could make at any time, and they either have or have not yet.
That's the thing I like about Christianity, is that there is a surrender element that is built into the fabric, throughout the fabric of it. Surrender is the first and the most core element to it. Yeah. And surrender's a little hard to come by outside of Christianity, in my experience. Like, there's if you read the text right, every path, every religion, every path, everything calls for surrender. But it's so hard to figure out. It makes sense. Like you said, Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. And well, yeah, he could have meant A or B, or he could have been putting words to something that is outside of our ability to comprehend. So the point isn't what he meant. The point is getting to know the guy that said it. That's like, to me, that's it's just like, there you go. It's just like, you met surrender. Who cares if it was right or wrong?
Well, I met a okay. I actually met a person and I surrendered.
But so that's the only way to meet surrender. You can't meet surrender. If you truly see yourself as alone, you cannot find surrender. What are you surrendering to? And in my language, like the language that makes more sense to me is still the Eastern language of I. Like I see it as myself. And honestly, this is something I'm trying to work through. I'm trying to figure out how I feel about this, but surrender makes life joyful.
But you can surrender to a false God.
Right.
So here's the heaviest, one of the things I hate.
Or you can surrender to nothing.
Which is also just another version of a false God, because the nothing. Or, okay, you can surrender to something besides the one true, only omnipotent, omniscient God, of which there's only room for one if he's truly omnipotent, omniscient, and all-powerful, because the universe can contain a being that is also omnipotent, omniscient, every place, all at once. You're
packing a lot of statement into one breath there.
I am. Anyway, so we won't go there. Okay. But so all I'm saying to you is it's real simple. It is a binary choice. Yeah. And you're right, it's very hard to come by surrender, because ultimately the surrender is two types. You either surrender to the only one and true God creator that there is, or you don't.
Yeah.
And all the variations of don't, like, well, I'm surrendering to this, I'm surrendering to that. Well, I'm not. It's actually just different kinds of really cover and many times obscuration, and sometimes making it sound better or more. Well, I can't tell you how many people that want to tell me when they listen to me, like, oh, I believe just like you too. And they go, oh, you do? Well, then, except for this, like, Jesus only thing, like, that's really too, restrictive. And if they really wanted to get, honest with about it down deep inside, they might even want to use words like myopic and bigoted and closed-minded and judgmental and stupid and really limited, because those are exactly the words that I used against many Christians that came to me and shared about Jesus while I was going through the transition of embracing Eastern religion. And I was a lot less polite than you are in conversation. You're very polite, and I wasn't, because I had a visceral thing going on in me that was angry and that was unresolved.
That's a recent upgrade for me.
Well, okay.
For the same reasons that you're now saying.
and so it's wonderful that there is always an open door in front of anybody, no matter how old they are, no matter what they've been through, to hear truth. And that's just half the thing, because if it isn't hear and, as you put, surrender, then there's not the change.
So when John gets up in the morning and his feet touch the floor, and he looks around and takes stock of the world around him, he sees a binary world.
Yeah.
On and off, right and wrong.
And also I don't, because I see the fact that that I'm also in an imperfect state of I'm not complete. I still have bad habits. I have bad thoughts and emotions that are because I've been used to doing things a certain way that don't align with truth. And that includes even my very understanding of God. That's why some people say,
do you believe that? Do you believe that your very understanding of God is flawed?
I believe it's imperfect.
Do you know where it's flawed? Do you know where it's imperfect?
No, because that's part of the imperfection.
But John, I wonder, do your actions say that you believe that? Do you feel like you live your life from an deep understanding that any part of what you see could be so different from what you think it is?
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful way to live.
And you can live that way and be a Christian at the same time.
Yes.
And part of that.
Oh my gosh. Like I want to I'm going to cut that out and I'm just going to loop it on repeat somewhere.
And you can be like that and still embrace Jesus Christ 100% as the only way, the truth, and the life, even though you don't understand him, but in tiny part. And there's even a scripture for this. So it's in the Bible, agrees with you, and it says this: we know in part. We don't know fully. And we will only know fully when we see him, and then we will see him as he is, and we will be changed to be like him when we see him as he is. But until then, it says whoever says they don't have sin in them, this is to Christians, whoever says they don't have wrong thinking, wrong beliefs, that even deception, whoever says they don't have any of them in them, it says that they're a liar, and the truth, they're a liar.
Jesus is the only way what?
Well, what he said.
What happens to the everyone else?
They stay the way they are.
Until what?
Well, you want to go here? Because
maybe, I don't know, you could nutshell your perspective of the afterlife, I guess.
I'll be happy to.
I would love to hear that.
So it's a something that actually Jesus talked about as much as anything else, and he talked about heaven and hell. hell is where people go that choose not to want to love him. They don't want his offer because he created them to have a love relationship with them. And he's made a way for all the blockages to that, our own selfishness, our own habitual selfishness, to be washed away by the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ. And it's offered to everybody. But since they're not robots, they get to choose how they will respond to God's cry of I call it the greatest unrequited lover in the universe of all time is God, where he's looking down every day on this creation, and I can't even begin to fathom it. Like, we are appalled when we see how it is. You're saying, well, how do you view this world? But if this perfect, infinitely perfect God, we can't even begin to imagine if he's truly empathetic, how, if he really is like this, he feels, even as we're sitting here, over all that's happening. And you go, well, he has the power. Why did he even let that happen? I mean, my goodness. And that gets into the great mystery, is like that was actually the only way that he could allow the potential for true love relationships, that there really is an option to say, no, I don't want to love you. No, I don't want to marry you. Will you marry me? No. No. And basically, hell is where people will go after their body is dead and their spirit continues on. And that's where they will be, where they choose not in relationship with him. And that is what hell is. And I don't even want to begin to describe what that would be like, because it
sounds depressing.
It's beyond my, it's beyond my pay curve, if you will. And
yeah.
But I'm not going to try to wash it away, because frankly, if I was God, I wouldn't have a hell. But
you are a John who is aware, just acutely aware of his imperfections, and knows that he doesn't know everything. Right. So you have the best understanding you've been able to cobble together so far.
Yeah. And so that would include some of these big questions like, well, why did you let Hitler do all that? I mean, I get questions personally. Well, John, if you're God so loving, why did he let my grandbaby get killed by a drunk driver? And, if it's so good, and like literally a woman just seething at me with great hurt. And I can say, I don't know why that happened. I'm sorry. Can't imagine your pain. I don't have an answer to that. But what I do know is that God is totally good. And he did not do that to your grandbaby. And that he feels all the pain that you have. And that he has a way forward for you that's good. And that he will do right by your grandbaby. And he's never, ever has ever done anything wrong, and he never will. And all he's ever done for anybody or ever will is love them perfectly.
Do you feel like that helps people that are in that place?
Sometimes it does. What helps always is truth and grace together. And the grace part is a mysterious thing, which is where in relationship with Jesus, I'm learning to submit to him moment by moment, conversation by conversation, to really have him be the third person here. And if you ask me a question, it's like, how do you answer that? And so I'm drawing on him to help me to say what is most loving and helpful for that person I'm talking to. So does it help her in that moment? That was helpful for what she meant.
I really like that language.
So, and it changes because I don't presume to know everything, but he does know.
You're talking about, and again, I'm not trying to be a thorn in your side here, but you're talking about Jesus in the exact same way that so many people talk about their guides or their like their own the more Easternized version of the spirit world, and I'm like, you guys, we're all looking at the same thing. And we're all calling it a wall or a rope or a leg tree trunk or what the elephant,
Yeah.
We're all looking at the same thing.
So, yeah, good point. No, so, Michael, so keep that train of thought with me, because I understand your train of thought right now, and I actually have been in that train of thought. And then
You're going to try to derail me.
I'm not derailing you.
Okay.
I'm going to throw out a tantalizing possibility, which is, what if there's another step here? And that step is, this thing that we could call a guide or could call a sense of intuitive awareness of truth. What if that is a person, and what if that person what if his name is Jesus Christ and is the historical human that lived here, and there's all this stuff written about? What if that actually is that guide that's speaking to everybody all the time, wooing them towards truth, drawing them and saying, hey, I'm here. I'm knocking at the door of your heart. If you'll open your heart to me, I will come in and we will sup together. We will do everything together.
Question. I think that the answer is, that probably is true. And my question is, what if that Jesus who's knocking at the door and who is pursued, I love how Tim said it, he felt pursued to the edges of his will or something like that, to the edges of his free choice. And I was just like, that's powerful. That's a hungry pursuit. And gracious. Which, by the way, freaking side trail there. Grace, in what you were describing, grace is the byproduct, the outcome of surrender. With the union with the Spirit, the union with Jesus, whatever. But what if Jesus accepts an invitation by any name? What if I'm looking at that same Spirit, because those words resonate with me. That's what it feels like to me. What if that Spirit of Jesus is there knocking, and he doesn't care what he's called? He just wants to be accepted. It's a love story after all. And he's like, what's in a name? I just want you to know that I'm here. Whether you believe I'm here or not, whether you want me here or not, whether you need me, it doesn't matter what your mind state is, because you're locked into this three-dimensional perspective. You can't see everything. I know that. So I'm here, and I'm your guide. I'm going to be with you. And however you find it, like different paths and stuff, these are all like choke points in spiritual conversations, because it's like, if you feel that knocking and you don't know the name Jesus, and Jesus, why did I say that like that? You don't know the name Jesus, and you open the door, and all of these same words you're saying resonate with this person, but they're just like, the words aren't what matter. And by the way, you're talking about the Bible and stuff, and it occurred to me, I don't believe everything I read. I just don't. And you're not going to convince me to believe everything I read just because the book is more interesting than any other book that's ever been written. I'm still not going to believe everything I read, but I would really like to get to know the mind behind the words. Because I believe there is a mind, even if it isn't the way I think of it. But is it possible that we're all actually looking at the same thing and we're fighting tooth and nail because we have this ego that keeps us safe from bears? And really, Jesus doesn't care what you call him. He doesn't care what club you're a part of. He cares do you want to become love? Do you want to surrender to the flow of the entire universe, of God, of whatever this enormous energy that binds everything together and gives it power? Are you willing to surrender? Are you willing to live your life because you care about the world around you? Live your life because you recognize that you are one speck in a giant ecosystem that is breathtakingly beautiful. It's just becoming so difficult for me to not see this one thing that we're all looking at, and every single conversation is about this one thing from a different perspective.
Okay.
Thanks for letting me just go down that road. That felt so cathartic.
Good.
And I'm interested to hear what you say.
And it brings up one point we haven't talked about enough yet, which is a real important point, that the enemy of God, Satan, the deceiver, comes as an angel of light.
I have read those words.
That was critical for me in my process because everything that you just said actually sounds like an angel of light. It actually sounds very, very, very good. And it's very, very captivating. And yet at the root of it, at the very, very root, there's a fatal flaw to it. And the fatal flaw is that there really is some other way besides Jesus Christ himself, whether you actually say that name or not. It's more than just saying the name. It's actually the reality of interacting with the person, Jesus Christ, who does have a name, whether you say the name or not.
Okay.
And eventually...
The name is important to you.
Well, it's not just important to me.
Okay.
Because he actually lets you know his name one way or another and through a variety of means. There's even people that I can give you stories about, as rare as it is that somebody has never heard the name of Jesus, though there is a lot of it. There's people that have interacted with God spiritually and opened their heart to him and come out and they've actually said, I need to know about Jesus. The name has actually been revealed to them. My own story, when I was up in, you're looking at me very skeptically.
Oh, that is my intense focus concentration.
So, but listen, so I'm glad you're
very
open.
Interested.
So just as a side note, because I had everything you just said, like I would have articulated that maybe not quite as well, but pretty well. Okay, I was pretty articulate about it
sort of.
when I was 18 or so.
Oh,
and
I see what you're saying.
Okay, way back then I would have articulated the same thing. So that's why I'm really like, yeah, I get you. Okay, but obviously I'm coming with and here's an additional possibility that there is another force at work here that does not want you to embrace Jesus Christ, which would include professing him. In my case, I took a backpacking trip to Yosemite. I was 18 years old. And I saved up my money all summer so I could go up into the mountains all by myself for weeks at a time, all by myself, go into the total wilderness, because I was going to have, one way or another, this self-realization experience. So I went up there not knowing what I was doing. I backpacked in the first day, 12 miles into the Tuolumne Meadows Highlands, which is wilderness, all by myself, an 18-year-old kid not knowing what the heck I was doing. And the first night, a bear comes and eats all my food. And I'm like, oh, whoa. However, there was a thing driving me to go, I'm on a spiritual quest. It didn't bother me. So I kept going. I ended up spending a couple of weeks up there, and I didn't have my nirvana experience. It was like I was kind of disappointed. And near the last night I was there, I was sleeping in a backpacking campground in Yosemite floor. I woke up one morning, and the first thought that came to me so loud, it was almost audible, was this: Jesus, Jesus. And I went, whoa. That's weird. I'm glad nobody heard that. Because it turns out he was pursuing me in this whole time. And he was the one that was drawing me through all of these things. And he was the one that was giving me a hunger and thirst for truth. And I tried to dismiss it because, again, I had this other part of me that says, oh, no, I'm not into that Jesus only thing. That's Jesus freaks. Like, ugh. And there's a parts of me that go, oh, I don't want to be one of them. So I dismissed it. Did my stuff that day, went to bed that night. Next morning, I wake up in the same background, same thing. The very open my eyes. Jesus, Jesus.
Like you're hearing it with your ears or in your head? Like
in my head, real loud.
Okay. Well, did it sound like your voice, or did it sound like someone else's voice?
No, it was a loud thought.
Okay.
A very loud
Didn't
thought.
sound like a voice, but it was a loud
Can you think of a loud thought?
Oh, I can. Yeah. No,
twice.
I'm getting it. Yep,
Jesus, Jesus, twice.
Like an intrusive thought.
Like an intrusive thought.
Yeah.
It was actually coming from somewhere out, which I think we all have all the time.
Oh, sure.
And they can come from different sources, and from God and from
some
the enemy.
Hear
and
voices. I'm
but
jealous
not
of those types.
So I again dismissed it. And so I tried to push it off and not think about it. So then on my way home, from that backpacking trip, I was hitchhiking back in those days, 1973. The last ride I got was, lo and behold, by 3 Christians. And so for about 2 hours, I had this long drive where they drove me home, and they asked me about what I believed. And so I gave them all the stuff I believed. And then they shared a scripture that really bugged me as they listened to all that I believe. They go, well, John, also, Satan does come as an angel of light. And that kind of somehow got a rise out of me. And I realize now that's because it was true. And that part of my experience was that I was listening to Satan in different ways, coming as an angel of light. And I had been for quite a while during my spiritual experience. And I had a choice then. I had a choice to either believe that was happening or not. That was hard. But I knew that also somewhere deeper inside of me, there was this pursuit going on. And this pursuit, like Tim put it very well, really, in fact, was the person of God, was the Father, was Jesus Christ, was the Holy Spirit literally pursuing me, knocking, beckoning, saying, John, hey, knock, knock, I'm here. I love you. I'm tracking you down. I'm not forcing you, but I love you so much. I'm not even passive. I'm actively, going out for the one.
To the edges of your free will.
To the edges of my free will. And that's what he did. And he did it then, and he did it on that ride home. And I finally got to the point after 2.5 hours, that I even got so far that I bowed my head in that car and I choked out a prayer because I sensed this thing so much, even though I had parts of me saying, yo, don't do that. You can't do that. And I prayed some silly, really, to me, prayer like, Jesus, I'm a sinner. Come into my heart. I want to receive you as my Savior and cleanse me of all my sin, and I believe you died for me, and I receive you right now. Something like that. And it was like the most humbling thing I'd ever done. It was like admitting in front of these Christians and everything that I had been all wrong with all my stuff. And
form is so important to the human process. Yeah. And
I left the car, and I knew it was like, oh, okay. I knew I had opened myself up to a power greater than myself. And I didn't know the full ramifications. The next morning, though, it was like, again, the fear came back of like, oh, what would people think? And I cave into that. And I go, no, I can't do this. And so, get what I did for 2 months? I went back to school. It was October, September, and I went down to my school, sophomore year now. And I tried to get into my study. I tried to get into stuff for 2 months. I would go to parties. I'd be dancing, and in the middle of the party, literally, the name would come, Jesus, Jesus. And I think, oh, I hope nobody hears that. And I was being pursued. And I finally, after 2 months, realized that I didn't want to fight it anymore. That I knew that he was pursuing me. And one morning in the library at UCSB, I'm trying to study. I throw my book down in one of those little private study cubicles, and all I did was this. Bang. Okay, God, I give it all up to you. And what I was doing in that moment is I was saying, okay, Jesus, I surrender all to you. You are the way, the truth, and the life. Anything else is, even when it sounds really good, that contradicts that is just a good liar, and I putting all my eggs in your basket. And I meant it 100%. And that was like 50-something, that was 73. And everything changed in that moment and has permanently changed. And I've never been the same, not even close since I became, like the Bible says, a new creature in Christ. And I became for the first time free of all those fears. And it happened in an instant. And that's salvation. And I hadn't even stepped foot in church. I didn't even have a Bible. None of it. This all happened.
73?
1973.
Is my math that bad? So that's like 50 years ago.
Well, we're 25, so 26. So.
But I had to cross 50, the 10, so 50, I lost track.
50, it's 51 years, 52.
That's incredible, John. I don't know what my question is there, but it's like you had this awakening experience. What you're describing sounds like a waking up.
Yeah, or as Phil Keaggy put it in a song, like waking up from the longest dream, how real it seemed until your love broke through. I was lost in a fantasy that blinded me until your love broke through. I've never known a selfless love. All of my love was mercenary and self-seeking through and through
To keep yourself safe.
until your love broke through. Well said by Phil Keaggy.
And that brings back memories because my dad listened to that kind of music. Like, I've heard that song. Like, I didn't know it enough to start singing it, or I would have, but now I'm going to look it up.
Like waking up from the longest dream, how real it seemed.
Oh my goodness.
Until
I have not thought
your
about
love
that song in
broke through.
decades. Thank you for that. It's going on my playlist.
I was lost in a fantasy that blinded me until your love broke through.
That's just, music sticks in your nervous system or somewhere. I have not heard that in since I was a child.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I would have guessed that was Keith Green, by the way, because I remember it with all that.
Close.
He also listened to Keith Green.
Close.
Phil
Yeah,
Keaggy.
definitely.
Oh my gosh, that was such a delicious rabbit trail. I was going to ask you something, though. Okay, just because I have to. If there's an evil one
Yeah.
that's fighting, if there is a battle, which I'll be honest with you, John, I am not convinced of. I was raised to see it that way, and I hear your words, and I see your sincerity,
Yeah.
and I'm looking at it. I want to see what it is you see, but it's just not something I'm convinced of. But if there was an evil one, don't you think that it would be brilliant strategy to get someone so wrapped up in the name that they couldn't be part of helping people find the person because they're so fixated on this name or that name and this interpretation or that interpretation, because that's where we kept coming back to in that whole narrative there is it comes that one step extra isn't just a name. Now, that is a straw manning. That is not my goal here. But just for the sake of argument, I'm curious what you say about that. Because to me, if I was the strategist for the devil, for the evil one, for whatever this is, exactly what's happening is what I would do, because I'd be like, I know that it's the person, it's the real presence, it's that connection that you feel to Jesus sitting next to you, that person X feels to whatever they call it sitting next to them. And if that is actually Jesus and there was an enemy, wouldn't the best strategy, and I'm just restating it again, I don't need to do that.
Wouldn't the
What do
best
you think?
strategy be to try to make it into a problem by twisting it and becoming it more of that the name becomes a barrier
Yeah.
to receiving the reality?
Because if the enemy
Okay.
knew that
Okay.
it's the real connection with the person that mattered, of course he's going to make it all about the name. And I feel like that's what I'm hearing, and I feel like that's what I'm seeing in the world around me is it's all about the name. And I'm almost like, all of your words are still the same words that resonate with the Buddhist who came to this, like, is found this spot inside himself that is like, I'm becoming love. And it's like, all the words are the same, but the meaning's different because it's not Jesus. Sorry.
Okay, so the answer is that the devil does exactly what you're saying, because one of his most inherent traits, as Jesus called it, is that he's the father of lies. So when he speaks his name, so he is the best, most talented liar of all time, and he's much smarter than you or I or any human.
I resent that.
Okay, what?
I
Okay.
resent that.
Okay.
No,
well,
I'm just joking.
Okay,
I'm totally messing with you.
Okay, well, that proves my point. No. So
Oh,
moving right
boy.
along. And so he absolutely tries to take everything that's good, the name of Jesus, the Bible, church,
Ice cream.
go on down, grace, anything you can possibly, and come up with a distorted, misrepresented version of it. So you could have somebody coming along whose motivation is not of God, who's talking Jesus, Jesus, Jesus all over the place, and say, well, you're going to hell if you don't say this. And totally, really more an instrument of the devil, because it is more than just words. It's the heart behind it, the motive behind it. But that is true, and that happens.
But the insincere Christians are a red herring to this discussion.
Well, let's not talk about insincere Christians.
Yeah.
Let's talk about a force that would want to take every mention of Jesus and distort it every time and even plant that thought in your head the way you described it, that, it's just it's like everything's the same and you just don't have this name. And like the whole concept of it sounds all logically, but where it's coming from is in fact the enemy. But what he's doing is not, the answer isn't because the name doesn't matter. It's because he wants to screw up the idea that the name actually does matter and is consistent, and God does reveal his name. And in fact, he says there is no other name given among men whereby men may be saved other than the name Jesus Christ. There is no other name. And that's, yes, you can come to him and he will reveal himself to them. And yes, the name matters too, but it's not a red herring, even though the enemy would love to make it seem like it was. But really, at the end of the day, if somebody is really, really open to God, honestly, and their whole hesitation is just, it's just the name of Jesus, it's not true. Because here's the big one. If you're truly ready to disassociate, if you're truly ready to surrender and you mean it in your heart, then you will embrace Jesus Christ and his name, because it goes with it. And the only obstacle to that is the lack of surrender, not because it's a red herring. And that is the truth, regardless of how it is portrayed in some kind of intellectual construct that sounds really clever and wise and good, because Satan comes as an angel of light.
Thank you. Not to that last thing, but clever and wise and good. Some part of that was about how I framed my straw manning arguments there. But what I feel like I'm hearing, the way you see it, is that God's play is a connection with Jesus. That's that connection point. And the enemy's only play is to muddle the connection up. And so whether it's on saying the name is important or saying the name isn't important, stands to reason if there is an enemy, that's where he's working. I think we just agreed. Like, I don't know if I see an enemy, but I would definitely agree with you. That's where he's going to be working.
Well, another big thing is he wants to convince us that he doesn't exist, because that
enemy.
Yeah. So I usually see the obstacles that I find to accepting Christ go right along with obstacles to accepting that there might be a personal devil. Because at the root of it, we're actually dealing with a reality. And the reality is, whether we believe it or not, is that there is one God, and that there is an enemy of God who is constantly attacking all of his creation to steal, kill, and destroy. As Jesus said, the enemy, the devil, only ever comes to kill and steal and destroy. But I have come to give you eternal life, which is heaven, but life abundantly. And so I have increasingly,
that's a good word,
the most abundant life that keeps every day. This is not an exaggeration. Every day I sense that my life becomes more abundant as I submit to Jesus Christ in my everyday stuff. Even though I know I already have eternal life about where I'm going after I die, it's also about here and now.
Do you feel like you're becoming more graceful?
Yes.
Another proof. Grace is the byproduct of surrender.
I actually see it the opposite way, that surrender is a byproduct of grace.
Oh my goodness. Okay. And that's a whole different topic. Let me see where we're at. Yeah, Angela's got a massage coming up here at some point. But
okay.
I would be really interested to know what your life looks like right now. Just generally speaking, like who are you now? What are you doing? What are your plans, and what fires you up? Where can people connect with you if they want? You're a super interesting person. You got a super interesting perspective.
So no, I'm like I basically I hand out my personal phone number to homeless people. Like, in other words, I'm completely available, open 100%, anytime, any place, anywhere.
Oh yeah, you put your number on the podcast you did with your dad. Your dad,
Son.
geez, your son.
Yeah, so I mean, I have everything from people, strangers I run into on the week to, like I'm retired from a financial point of view, but I'm not retired at all because I spend every day now doing what people would call ministry. I spent full time where...
Is that what you retired from too? Ministry?
Yeah.
Were you a pastor?
No, I'm not a pastor.
But were you? Is that what you're...
No, I was in the data processing for 30 years. I had
data
a
processing.
6-figure salary, blah, blah, blah. I had 8 kids. I had horses and goats.
You
and
must have
all
been
sorts
very happy.
sometimes.
Oh, okay. Great.
Not all the time.
Oh, boy.
And so that's another whole story.
Yeah.
But what I do find is that God has a purpose for all of us that is actually the creator. This is so crazy. Actually, before we were born, has a full, wonderful agenda all mapped out that because we're free will agents can choose or not choose to go along with. And so
You just love dangling rabbit trails out there.
well,
You know
if
what
you're-
type
but
of
you're-
stuff I want to bite on.
But you see, the thing you're asking what I do, if the best way I could define it more than ever, this is the big thing, is that more than ever, my relationship with God is closer than ever. And so by that, I mean my friendship, my actual communication on a very real level. And my day,
intimacy.
my intimacy too. And so when my day starts, it's like the first thing is that I spend time like waiting on him. Like, and I
Meditating?
yeah, what does that mean? I don't know. Like,
That's a good question.
yeah, I don't even want to use these words because they open up all
you
sorts of
waiting?
misunderstanding.
Praying?
The best way I would say, yeah, all the above. But what is praying? And so, so I'd like to avoid buzzwords,
Yeah.
Christianese and others.
But buzzwords are very useful to find a bunch of location points around a central emotion.
So you could
cluster.
use all of it: meditation, pray. But and if you break
then they're
that
valuable
down,
again.
and then let's get a definition. So for me,
That is the definition.
yeah.
What is it?
And so
Depends
here's
on how you experience it, I guess. Okay, go ahead.
And a big part of it is learning to have not monologue, but dialogue. And a big part of that is more time hearing from him rather than me blabbing.
Listen. Learn to listen. Yeah.
And I'm learning to listen to the invisible God by faith at the beginning of my day, because then it changes the whole day. Because I begin to set a tone and a inertia spiritually where I'm in that vein, which is even right now as we're sitting here, that's where a lot of this comes from, is having, like you can do anything in life, where you get in a certain attitude, and that attitude will affect everything you do. And so I start, and my attempt each day is to stay in what I would call an attitude of prayer or an attitude of communion with God, even while I'm talking to someone else. And that's the best way I could define what I do.
Or an attitude of meditation.
Or an attitude of meditation. Or the Bible says pray without ceasing. Certainly
without
doesn't mean
ceasing.
being on your prayer, going, Our Father, art in heaven. No, it's like,
Oh, Lord Almighty God in heaven,
Yeah.
hear my prayer. Oh, you must be exhausted, bro.
Yeah.
You're a human. Stop thinking that
yeah.
you're something you're not.
yeah,
God
stop
already knows.
trying to perform in front of me.
Relax.
Like, so what
Relax.
do you, and so I learned what it means
Your needs are
to have
already
a
known.
best friend forever, BFF. Well, that's another name for Jesus Christ, because he truly is the one, the bestest best friend forever. That's
Unless he's not your friend.
well, let's say that is what
Then he's
you
the
were
worst best
designed
friend.
for. You were created by your creator to have him as your best friend forever.
I'm being bratty. Yes, I know.
It's okay.
Yeah. Okay. So when I asked you kind of like what you're doing now and stuff like that, you told me what.
So
I think you told me
practically-
what's most important in your perspective.
I told you the motivation. Practically,
Okay.
it's different every day, but there's lots of really interesting connections that could be with strangers. A lot of Christians, a lot of working with different churches, doing this. This is cool because to me, it's like some people say, "Oh, do you want you're afraid of your identity?" And so I go, "Look, you could go look at all my stuff, and the more closer you look, you're just going to say, oh, this guy is like, what? It's just all about Jesus, this and that." So like, hey, have at it, because that's not that I'm perfect, but that's more what they're going to see, because like that we can come to the point where you are what you believe, and that what I believe is really reflected in what I do and how I spend my time.
You are so right.
And I'm not, trust me, I've got my off moments like we all do, and I deal with that too. But more and more, it's great to walk in consistency with what you believe.
Is there anything in specific you're working on or organization you're working with that's
so
like a
I
big
am the
central thing?
U.S. Western Regional Team Leader for Evangelism Explosion International. So they're been around 60 years. They're a organization that does training in churches to help Christians become better at sharing their faith in the right way, not in a wrong way, because there's a lot of how it's been done wrong. And that especially includes motives, and so that we don't do all the things that you think of when you think of evangelism and cringe, and I do particularly, even though I would be called an evangelist. So I'm particularly...
Like cramming Western culture down people's throats, maybe?
Correct.
Okay.
Like, for example, they're in almost every country of the world, and every country they're in, the leadership of it is indigenous, meaning they have their own countries.
Okay.
Yeah, so that would be one way.
That's a really good starting point.
That's a starting point. But more than that, they basically just adhere to the simple gospel that's the same whether you're in the first century or in 2025. That is really not a matter of being modified for the culture, but it's a matter of it being shared clearly and simply, and people be given an opportunity to simply hear and believe it. And so faith is the key to transformation, and faith comes by hearing the message. So I literally experience on a regular basis going out in the streets, we go to homeless communities, I go sometimes to churches. I go sometimes to I go to Zoom meetings. I was to Australia. I was last week in India. A group of people from multiple states in India, where it's illegal, by the way. You can be thrown. And I'm literally doing
My dad got
evangelism class by Zoom in India, and as a result, they are being helped to learn how to share their faith, or as the Bible says, to be able, let every Christian be ready, to slam things down their throat, to clobber you with the Bible verse? No, let every Christian be ready to give account for the hope that's in them with gentleness and respect.
That seems pretty specific.
Gentleness and respect.
Account of hope.
Account of hope.
Let everyone be ready to tell a story of hope with gentleness and respect.
And it's there. It says, let everybody to give an account.
A story of your hope.
Their hope, not some line, which often actually that is what it is. And that, why do people recoil? Because they can tell somebody's not, they're just saying a line.
So really, all it's saying is always be ready to tell your story.
Yeah. With gentleness,
respectfully,
and permission,
gently,
and permission.
Yeah.
You don't just come up to somebody and say, "I'm going to tell you my story, whether you like it or not."
I like that.
If somebody give it to me, I go, "I'm a Christian, and I don't even want to hear it. Like, go away."
I'd be like, "This is going to be interesting."
Yeah, probably. You would.
Yeah, I would. Okay, sounds like you're living the type of life that is kind of feels like a fantasy, like it's like my dream life. It's kind of, and it's kind of feels like the life I'm stepping into. One of just being like, I'm going to do the thing that's in front of me that has the most push on the thing that I am trying to accomplish in the world around me.
Yes, that's
just yes. A life of yes.
Yeah, so that's what I'm endeavoring to do.
Nice.
Yeah. more than ever in my life, and actually am doing more than ever. And it's certainly been a lifelong process.
Yeah.
And not a clean one. It's like the stock market where it's like this as far as.
And then you have to go through
Falls
clean
and
out
ups
and
and-
healing processes in yourself and then in your family and some relationships and finances.
And you have very hard things happen that seem to contradict everything you believe.
And you're drinking out of a fire hose every day.
And then other times you're completely in a desert.
Yeah.
No fire hose.
Even
at
in
all.
the desert, though, boy, the learning is there. That can be some of the most fire hose times.
Yeah, different. Yes.
Yeah. But it's all in the words, definitions.
So how are you feeling right now?
Very satisfied.
Oh, good.
Yeah. I was able to dig into some areas a little more deeply than I ever have before that I really want to. But it's hard to find somebody, it's hard. These are things that are very personal to people.
Yeah.
And the last, I'm looking at something that is like a dazzling sparkle, like the energy of your being. But it's everybody I look at. Everyone is so fascinatingly interesting. And what I want to do is I want to create an envelope, a little space where we can where that dazzle can come out in its raw, unedited, just vulnerable, emotional form, because it's different than any other one I've ever seen, but not less beautiful. So thank you.
Thank you.
I suspect it might be really fun to sit down in a live stream, like just a little short 15 minutes thing to just be like, okay, let's start the conversation about absolute truth. Like, what does it actually mean? Because yeah, we talk about these things in circles all the time for all of recorded history, but the truth is there's a reason people are still interested.
Oh, I agree. Maybe it's because reality has a way of not being suppressed. It's no matter how much it gets obscured over by how many liars and lies. And
yeah. Thanks for embracing humility and still choosing to be honest. Takes courage.
Thanks for your time, John, and a beautiful conversation. And thanks to the sponsors of this episode. Discover Oregon Real Estate, where you can find your place. Journey Empowered, your guides on the adventure of life. Living Balance Wellness, bringing connection and balance to your body, mind, and spirit. Thanks to Buddy Anderson and his original music. And a special thank you to Spencer Thomas of Creator Culture, who collaborated with us to make that awesome video intro. Click the links. Check out our sponsors and collaborators. These aren't just awesome people, they're real people. And thanks to you for bringing your listening energy to this conversation. Until next time, stay curious.